Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today's third video. You're going to have a look at whether it's week to 10 days for today's third video. It's going to take us to around the 4th of December. In fact, we'll be able to extend out a little bit beyond that with the GFS because that runs to around 2 weeks. So we're still channeling this change to milder and more unsettled weather coming up in the next week. That's all covered by the weekend forecast, and you can find weekend forecast, both the video and the written version on the weekend forecast page. And earlier on today, we actually released the third and final season one round of winter 2018-19. That video is here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit and you'll find it above the snow desk. So it's getting around 13 or 14 long-range models together for the final time to see what we're all showing for this winter, and it's a very, very, very interesting watch. I can tell you that later on today. That video will be placed on the winter updates page, and there'll be a written summary that goes with that as well. So I'll go with your week to 10 day video update in a moment. Just say that this evening also got the 10th Christmas update coming up. So it's a really, really busy day at Gazov's today. I hope you're enjoying all of the updates. We're going to start off with centering intention. It hasn't been updated for a few days. It has just been updated today at Hadley. So the CET provisional now, up to the 23rd of November, up to yesterday, is sitting at 8.6 degrees, an anomaly of around 1.5 degrees above average. So, as we thought, it looks like this November is now going to be a milder than average month. About 10 days or so ago, we thought maybe around average with this cold weather, but the cold weather hasn't been cold enough to really pull this down from a very mild or even quite warm position it was at through the first half of the month. So it had a very mild first half of November. It has turned colder, has been quite cold over the past few days, but not cold enough to bring this down to average. So I think when we get to the end of the month, it's probably going to be sitting in the low 8s somewhere, or possibly the high 7s if we get a downwards correction. What's happened here is that we just haven't had cold enough nights. We did have one very frosty night the other night, but really haven't had the frosty nights with this east. It's been too cloudy, which has meant that daytimes, yes, they've been quite chilly, quite cold in the day, but by night it's not been going sub-zero. And to really get a CET collapse from a high level, you need cold nights, you need frosty nights. You haven't had that. So I think we're going to finish up around a degree, a little bit more than a degree above average for this November. And of course that will mean that the autumn comes out as a milder than average autumn as well, because I said November would be the decider for this autumn, given that September came out the CET of 13.7, which is just 0.1 of a degree above average, when October came out at 10.6, which was bang on average. So for September and October, we had two very, very average months, which meant that November would be the decider for where this autumn came out. And because we've had quite a mild November, certainly the first half of it, and we're going to come out with a milder than average November for the CET, that means that autumn overall will be a little bit milder than average as well. So that's how things are looking with CT at the moment anyway. Right, so these are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from Penn State University. We've got the, for next week to 10 days, we've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look in a moment, on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8,000 feet is an area in the absolute high pressure, low pressure, are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates to high pressure, blue to low pressure. The ECM has this trough of below average heights to the north and west of the British Isles through the Atlantic. It's got a ridge down to the south also in the 7 to 10 day time frame, and a bit of a northern blocking signal as well. We have got some high pressure up over top of the pole, but as it is, we are in an Atlantic flow here, bringing westerlies in off the Atlantic, and so it looks up to the 8 to 10 day time frame anyway, which takes us into the first week of December. It looks relatively unsettled, and I suppose reasonably mild as well. The GFS is very similar. That's how the GFS is looking in the 7 to 10 day time frame. So again, we've got that area of below average heights to the west of the UK. We've got some above average heights down across Spain and Portugal. So we're bringing the wind in from the Atlantic and the jet stream and the air indicated by the black lines, bringing the air in off the Atlantic. Again, a bit of a blocking signal, this time more towards the far east of Scandinavia and sort of northwestern parts of Russia. So a little bit of high pressure up there in a slightly different position to where the ECM has it. But basically, through to early December, we've been talking about this in videos a lot lately, so it's not a surprise. Early December looks like it will be milder and more unsettled and more changeable as well. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles. Looking at London today, so the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for London. So it's going to get a bit colder over the next couple of days, actually. You're going to pick up this easterly wind again. That's going to start to drag colder air in from the east. So may get a couple of cold nights, actually, especially Sunday night again on Monday night. After that, though, the temperature goes milder through the middle part of the week, maybe very mild, into mid-teens Celsius potentially on Wednesday. I mean, it's a little bit up and down, a bit of a zonal sine wave, I suppose, appears. So we've got a warmer sector there, we've got a cooler sector there, and we've got another warmer sector just there. That takes us into the opening days of December. Now, further through this first week of December and into the second week of December, I think the GFS ensembles today are just indicating a little bit of a cool down starting to take place. We do still have some ensemble members that are quite warm, these ones up here quite mild, but I think the trend of the GFS ensemble is to start to turn things a bit colder again as we move through the last sort of days of the first week of December. So it's kind of like the 6th, the 7th, the 8th to the 9th of December. Possibly starting to see something a little bit colder beginning to emerge within the GFS ensemble. So that's a very, very long way out, and it is unreliable. Got quite a bit of precipitation coming up as well, so it's been wet down in the south today, of course, and then as we go through into next week, as this change takes place Tuesday to Wednesday, as it goes mild, it also goes much wetter. Some heavy rain coming up then and strong winds too. More wet weather likely next weekend as well, so into a much more changeable spell of weather in the next week to 10 days. And then as the temperature lowers perhaps later in the first week of December, we've possibly seen signs that it's going a little bit drier at that point. But again, have to emphasise that is unreliable. Temperature anomalies from the 24th of November to the 2nd of December are coming out more or less average, maybe a little bit above average. It's not a big deviation, somewhere around a degree, I suppose, above average. Maybe a bit more down in the south and a little bit less up in the north. But again, it's not a big deviation. You see that the colder than average temperature anomalies are being pushed over into the eastern side of Europe. So you can see that obviously the Atlantic flow is re-establishing, and that's starting to move those colder than average temperatures back to the east of Europe and the west of Russia as well in the week ahead. Precipitation anomalies close to average, possibly a little bit wetter than average through some parts of the UK and Ireland. Again, you see the drier than average precipitation anomalies with those colder temperatures are being pushed back into the east of Europe and the west of Russia. It looks like a more unsettled, a milder but wetter period as we go through to the very end of November and the start of December. This is how the midnight run of the GFS was looking on Tuesday. High pressure still just about holding on at midnight on Tuesday to the northeast, but it's all this low pressure in the Atlantic that we're looking to bring the change to wet and windy weather as we get into the middle of the week. And there we go, we're through from Tuesday to Wednesday. It's turned wet and windy across the country. May even be a little bit stormy in the north on Wednesday. Showers or longer spells of rain really through this middle part of the week. Very mild for a time on Wednesday, and then gradually seeing the temperature lowering down a little bit. Build up a slight transient ridge there for Friday. That'll be a rather colder but drier day on Friday, but then we're back to wet and windy stuff as we go through into the weekend as low pressure comes back in from off the Atlantic. We're up to day 10 now, which is Tuesday the 4th of December, and we're still looking generally westerly, so still unsettled with showers in particular in the north. Now the midnight run of the GFS then started to produce a change. This is Wednesday the 5th of December, and we start to get this ridge building close to the UK. Initially that would be quite a mildish ridge, but look where the midnight run of the GFS eventually took that area of ridge of high pressure. It took it into an area of high pressure and built it across northern Europe. So we're back here on Saturday the 8th of December, a very long way off, but we are back into high pressure blocking to our east and northeast. The wind trying to swing back round into the east once again, very similar to the weather pattern that we've just had. That's how we finished up with this GFS run on the midnight run of the GFS on Monday the 10th of December. We've got the high pressure back in over Scandinavia yet again. So this is a recurring theme, it seems, at the moment. These areas of high pressure trying to get Scandinavia, trying to get over Scandinavia, and trying to get wind back into the east. This all looks very flabby up to the end of a GFS run Monday 10th of December. So there's no direct hits from the east. But if we keep building these areas of high pressure over Scandinavia, if we keep ridging heights into Scandinavia, sooner or later it's going to lock into a very cold spell of weather. And of course that gets more likely the further on into winter we go, because at that point we're still early in the winter, Monday the 10th. But if this is still going on in January or February, if we're still seeing these repeated attempts to get the high pressure in over Scandinavia, then sooner or later we will lock in to a very cold and potentially very snowy easterly wind. So it's a matter of when, not if, that happens, if this pattern keeps recurring. And that's what we can't say, because just because it's been a repeating pattern that we've seen over the past few weeks and months, these areas of high pressure building over Scandinavia, we can't say that's necessarily how the rest of the winter is going to progress. But it is very interesting that within the time frame of the GFS, which is like 2 weeks, within that time frame we have lost a Scandinavian high that we've had over the past few days, gone into a more mobile westerly phase of weather, and then had another go within the time frame of this GFS run, had another go again a high pressure back in over Scandinavia. So the signs are there that something is going on with the atmosphere this year that is different. And we know that anyway, because we've had a very unusual run of weather, starting with the beast from the east back in February and March, and just going through the summer, where the weather patterns through the summer were very bizarre, very hot conditions through the summer, but again, very blocked conditions through the summer. And then we've kept those unusual weather patterns going through the autumn as well. So we know there's something going on in the atmosphere that is different this year, and it's going to be really interesting to see where this goes as we get into the winter. This is how the 6 o'clock run, the very latest run of the GFS, is looking. Again, through the early part of the week, quite cold. Then we go wet and windy, maybe a bit stormy on Wednesday. Unsettled through Thursday, Friday into next weekend. Low pressure continues to be dominating the weather, bringing more wet weather into next weekend. We're heading into day 10, and that is day 10, which is Tuesday the 4th of December. Again, showers or longer spells of rain coming through with that. In the more extended range of a 6 o'clock run of the GFS, we have a go actually at trying to get a bit of a ridge going. You'll notice we have got heights there over Scandinavia and backing into the west of Russia, so we have got some high pressure up here, and we're having a go at building this ridge into it. But actually on this particular GFS run, that doesn't come to a great deal up to the very end of the GFS run, which is Monday the 10th of December again. Haven't really got heights in over Scandinavia this time. Of course, this is over 2 weeks away, so you're going to expect lots of chopping and changing. It's just the fact that the model is already having a go at trying to build those heights back to Scandinavia again within the time frame of this GFS run, within like a couple of weeks. It's that is interesting, because it's quite unusual to see that recurring pattern, especially at this time of the year when the Atlantic would normally be at its most buoyant. You would normally expect at this time of year, when the Atlantic winds break through, they're going to last quite a long while. GM looks like that. So again, starting quite cold in the coming week, then going wet and windy through the middle part of the week, taking us into a very unsettled phase of weather. The end of the week, we turn the wind into the north, so bring down a little bit of a northerly wind. Doesn't last all that long. We're back to wet and windy weather through the course of next weekend. And then into a more extended range, taking us up to Tuesday the 4th of December. again, we look rather unsettled at that point with low pressure not too far away. So we are going into a more changeable period of weather for the beginning of December, most definitely. ECM is looking like this, so quite cold to start the week, then wet and windy through the middle part of the week, taking us into a showery spell at the end of the week, and then next weekend, more wet and windy weather, quite mild next weekend, winds coming in from the southwest, so certainly no problems with temperatures next weekend. That's how we look at day 10, which is Tuesday the 4th of December. Still in an Atlantic run of weather. We've still got high pressure generally centred to the south of the country. We've got low pressure out to the northwest. You notice what's going on up here, though. We've got a bit of an Arctic high nosing out of the North Pole and beginning to push down towards Greenland. Now, that will contain some very, very cold air indeed within that, because it's high pressure that's originating out of the Arctic. So there's the cold pool that is associated with that Arctic high, sitting just to the north of Scandinavia. So that's really, really cold air that's sitting just to the north of Scandinavia. And where we will go with the ECM beyond that, if we could run out beyond day 10, which we can't, but if we could, it would be interesting, because it looks like this high pressure to the south is building a bit of a ridge over the UK. It's building a bit of a bump, and so the high pressure up here and the high pressure down here will probably, if we could run on, they would probably force apart these areas of low pressure just here, and we would probably try and ridge the two highs together. So this high from the south would probably try to push north, and this high in the north would probably try and push south, and they would probably try to form an area of high pressure somewhere around here, with cold air beginning, or very severely cold air, beginning to push down into the northeast of Europe. So that's one of those charts at day 10 that doesn't look like there's a great deal going on, but if you read between the lines, which sometimes you have to do with model output, you kind of read between the lines and try and plot out where that would go if you could run on a few more days. That could get into a very, very interesting situation, say 4 or 5 days further on. In fact, I can show you again, as we did yesterday, the ECMWF postage stamps from the ensembles via the Icelandic Met Office. So just finished with this. These are the options that are on the table within the 51 ECMWF ensemble members at day 10, which is, of course, going to be the 4th of December. So we've got 31, which is 60.8 ensemble members, 60.8% of ensemble members, with low pressure to the northwest of the British Isles at day 10, high pressure to the south, but also ridging to the east as well. And so these ones are relatively mild, these 31, relatively mild with the ECMWF ensembles at day 10. Keeping us in that westerly flow. The other option, which is 20 ensemble members, 39.2%. Again, unsettled, below average heights, close to the country, low pressure, very, very close into the UK. But we do see up there a little bit of yellow just appearing at the very, very top of the chart, which is a nose of high pressure. So then that's more in line with the operational run of the ECMWF. So I guess that tells us that the operational run at day 10 is not particularly well supported by its ensembles, actually. Most ensemble members are actually in this sort of scenario, which doesn't really nose that area of high pressure out of the Atlantic. Either scenario, though, is basically quite mild at day 10 anyway, still in a westerly sort of flow. So all options really are pointing towards westerlies continuing to day 10, which is the 4th of December, which we knew anyway. We knew that the first week of December is likely to be relatively mild. Now, we can go further out now, although the operational run only runs to the operational run only runs to 10 days out. The ECM ensembles can actually go to 2 weeks out. So these are how the postage stamps are looking from the ECM ensembles to 360 hours, which is the 9th of December. These are the 3 options that are on the table with the ECMWF ensembles at 2 weeks away. We've got 18 ensemble members, 35.3%, that are still quite mild with above average heights down to the south of the country, southwest, below average heights in the middle of the Atlantic, and we do something like that with the flow, so bring the westerlies in from off the Atlantic, if you like. They're mild. Then we've got another 17, which is 33.3% of the ECM ensembles that look like this. They have a ridge in the middle of the Atlantic, and they do take that ridge up towards Greenland and the Arctic as well. That's probably where the operational run would have gone if we could have gone out beyond 10 days, with an area of below average heights, an area of low pressure centred over and to the east of the UK. And so these would be colder. We would pull the wind in from a northerly direction with those ensemble members. And then we've got another 16 ensemble members, which is 31.4%, which are doing this. And these are probably the coldest, actually, because these are building up a ridge of blocking high pressure, again, around Scandinavia. And these ones are turning the wind into the east. So they're easterlies, those 16. Now, what we can say is that they're split pretty well evenly, but what we can say is that between these 17 that are pulling in the winds from the north and these 16 that are building the high pressure up over Scandinavia, we have, again, and this is what we were saying yesterday, we are seeing that by 2 weeks away, the ECM ensembles, whether it happens from northerlies or easterlies, or a combination of the two, perhaps, a blend of the two, the ECM ensembles appear to be moving into a colder direction again as we get to 2 weeks away. So as we get into the second week of December, we could start seeing things turning quite a lot colder after that initially fairly mild start to December. All fascinating stuff, and we're going to have to wait and see where this is going. But as we've been saying in the videos, it's by no means impossible that this could be a very short spell of milder, more Atlantic type weather. And even as soon as the second week of December, we could find ourselves going back into cold weather, either from the north or from the east, or maybe, if we get a combination of the two, from the northeast. So we'll keep an eye on that, of course, and it'll be important to keep an eye on the ensembles over the next few days. So I think we'll probably do an ensembles watch with the GFS model tomorrow evening, sometime around 5 o'clock, something like that. And of course, tomorrow we've also got the 13th and final winter update. Right, so that's the third video done for today. And just got one more left, and that's the 10th Christmas update. That'll be with you around 7 o'clock tonight. Don't forget to check out the final season one roundup for winter 2018-19. It's a very interesting view indeed, I have to say. And that video will be placed on the winter updates page later on today with a written summary. Right, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.